From training camp.
If you want a job now, you got to work hard.
To the preseason.
Scampers down to the 32-yard line.
Through the playoffs.
He's in! Touchdown!
And into the offseason.
To be able to get the best players, it's a critical time for us.
It's always Colts season. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen.
That is a W. First road win, first divisional win of the season. 2017, Colts victorious in Week 6, 3-3 on the year. And now return home for their lone home game, Dallas Clark Ring of Honor game. Coming up here, Week 7, it will be Colts and Dolphins from Lucas Oil Stadium. Eddie Garrison, as always, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen and Eddie Garrison. Easy for me to say. Here on this Monday morning, we will recap, again, the first divisional win, the first road win of the season. Certainly a game that I don't know if we walk away with grand takeaways of like things are going to change, but also I think the Colts are kind of in a boat of you just needed a damn win, particularly in the division, and you're able to get that for you on Sunday. Anything big picture for you, Eddie, before we get into what I liked, what I didn't like?
Not really. I think it's just fitting that Dallas Clark's Ring of Honor ceremonies against the Dolphins, because one of my last memories of him is that big play on the first game on Monday Night Football against Miami.
Good call. I thought you were going to go with the tight ends. Had a big day on Sunday. They did.
They did.
6 catches, 65 yards for the tight ends.
They've been more involved the last 2 weeks.
They certainly have. There's an element in a 17-game season, Eddie, where you get presented gifts, and your job is not to look at your mom and say, why did you buy this for me? Your job's to accept the gift.
Mm-hmm. And be thankful.
And be thankful and be grateful and say, I love you, Mother, and give her a hug. 113 yards in penalties doesn't happen every week. Playing Will Levis doesn't happen every week. You got the gift, you take it, and you move on. Again, I don't know if there are anything in particular of these big, massive takeaways in regards to, where you're at with this football team, et cetera, et cetera. We'll wait for Anthony Richardson until, I think we got some questions on AR, didn't we?
Yes.
Let's wait for anything Richardson related until that. I think you should celebrate, acknowledge the win as it is here. Again, it's our job to kind of live in the present, see if there's any grand takeaways you can point to moving forward, and we'll do that on today's pod. But, big reason why I picked the Colts to win is they had the two best quarterbacks. One of them played, one of them didn't, and I think you saw that play out yesterday. And again, your defense did finish. And, someone mentioned to me earlier, well, yeah, if it was anybody but Will Levis, they wouldn't have finished. Well, yeah, there's probably some truth to that, but after one of the worst plays you'll see the Colts ever have, certainly one of the most embarrassing plays the Colts have ever had, to react like that with 5 drives of no points and 2 first downs, you finished. You made plays in the fourth quarter. So, game balls to Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr., Rigo Sanchez, Ashton Doolin at gunner. All of them deserve it.
I picked Tennessee because I didn't think Michael Pittman Jr. was going to play.
Certainly the injury situation changed a lot. I thought the game-changing moments, the Pittman 3rd and goal is obvious.
Yep.
I mean, if that ball falls incomplete, do you win the game? You kick a field goal there at 17-16 midway through the fourth quarter.
Right.
You trusting to get into field goal range again, and Matt Gay kicking a 44-yarder for the win? I mean, that's what it probably would have looked like there the rest of the way. I also thought kind of a sneaky play was this, Eddie. Early fourth quarter, again, you just had one of the most embarrassing plays in the history of the franchise. The Titans get it, and Pollard runs for 5 and then runs for 4. I mean, like exactly what Tennessee would want. It's a 3rd and 1, and you get a stuff there. Grover Stewart, Latu, combine on that. I thought that was such a critical juncture of just like, it's 17-13. It's not going to show up in any highlight reels. But again, you had just gotten gashed on that, 8-minute, 9-minute drive there, the 14-play touchdown drive,
the
3rd and 19. That 3rd and 1 there, it ended up turning into the Colts turned that into a touchdown. Obviously, the Pierce defensive pass interference was big on that drive as well, but still, I thought a little play was that 3rd and 1.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you there. And I was a little shocked in the moment that Tennessee wouldn't consider going for it.
I thought they might. Yeah, I don't know. I thought they kind of had some losing. I thought I was disappointed in Brian Callahan. I mean, not going for the 4th and 7. I mean, it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to get it, but like, I mean, if you kick it back, Colts get 1 first down and it's over. And obviously, you saw that happen. All right, should we do it?
Yeah, let's dive into what you liked. We will start with the efforts of Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs because Josh Downs practiced 1 time last week and Pittman practiced twice, right? But he was a full participant on Friday?
Pittman, they both just practiced 1 day.
Okay, I thought there was a limited in there somewhere for Pittman, but yeah.
No. Gutty. Just gutty. I mean, it's...
You want to get it out of the way?
He's no USC pretty boy. Right?
Yep.
I mean, he is no USC pretty boy. I just... His toughness is through the roof. He stands for everything you want to be about. I was surprised, Eddie, not only did they play... But Pittman hovered right around his normal snap count, like 80%. That's kind of what he plays, maybe a little bit more than that. And then if you look at Josh Downs played a season high in percentages. And Downs, not only was he a great receiver for you, yards after catch, I noticed a few times. How big was he as a punt returner?
Yeah, he was huge.
He had 4 punt returns of at least 15 yards. That was in a 2017 ugly slugfest, that is a huge... You're giving your team a first down and a half?
Yeah.
Every single time you touch it, and a couple of them went over 20. Just so big from Josh Downs on Sunday. So, again, some of it is just them playing, but also I thought in Downs' case, he was probably your best player on the field, and in Pittman's case, he came up huge when you needed him the most. Downs had that extension on the 3rd and 7. He also won that option route on the corner on the 4th down. I mean, that was a corner that got on him, and he still won that. And then Pittman. What more can you say, Eddie? Climbing the ladder. Again, I mean, it's just it's the play of the game, and then he makes another contested catch play after that. He's going through a lot. We had him on our morning show. Maybe let's play that on maybe Wednesday's pod.
Okay.
Eddie, we had him on our morning show this morning. Just gutty. He's going through a lot. I mean, I think he's heavily debating IR, and this is going to be a week-to-week thing. But he's at a point in time where he's going to try and give it a go. And I thought he acknowledged that everybody's dealing with something. Certainly, that might come up in our Anthony Richardson conversation here in a bit. But
yep,
just big time from Pittman yesterday. I get statistically he might not be a number 1 or however people want to label him that. I don't know. How do you define 1? Is it the top 10 wideouts in the league or is it the top 32 wideouts in the league? He's tough as hell. And without him yesterday, you don't win. So I wanted to mention those two. Pittman and Downs, great individual efforts, both in availability and in ability on the field.
That's back-to-back trips now in Nashville where Pittman has had the game-winning touchdown.
Good call on that. Yeah, he tried to downplay that today. He's like, I don't call it the game winner. I thought our defense won it. I wanted to be like, dude, just take the credit.
Yeah, I would probably do the same because the way that the defense finished was another thing you liked, and I thought they did a terrific job in the 4th quarter, especially with the way they had performed in the recent weeks in the second half.
Live in the moment. What was the moment? 5 drives in the 4th quarter, 0 points allowed, 2 first downs. Not going to talk big picture. Not at all. I mean, they did their job. And Julian Blackmon caught an interception. I mean, he didn't catch one earlier in the game. That was a wounded duck from Levis, but still, that was a 3-point play. Blackmon dropping that ball because Nick Folk kicks that field goal right after that. So, finishing. You had an opportunity to finish last week and force the game into overtime. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
You had an opportunity this week to finish, and they did it on 5 drives. The offense was not perfect in that 4th quarter by any means.
No.
You had a couple very short drives as well. The clock really wasn't on your side, so give credit where credit's due. What did I like? I liked that the defense finished.
Zaire Franklin led the team in tackles with 9. Nick Cross, once again, had a couple nice tackles in the open field outside of the one missed on that.
I thought in general they tackled better.
Yeah. But then again, I don't think Tennessee has guys that really, outside of Tony Pollard, that are... they're going to make you
Sunday
miss.
Is going to be a test in tackling. When you look at Miami's skill group, we'll see how healthy A-Chain is coming into this game. But still, I thought they did tackle better. Granted, the bar was pretty low coming into this week.
The Colts defense last week, no hits on the quarterback. This week, let's see, how many hits did they get on Will Levis? Do you remember, Kev?
thought it was 4.
Yes.
Latu had 2 and
Dio had 2.
Dio had the other 2. Yeah. Dio had a big pressure there on the Blackman pick too.
Especially because he went down early in the game or went out for a moment with the hamstring injury.
Yeah, for a brief period there.
Nobody else injured, right, coming out of that game?
Ryan Kelly. Yeah, Ryan Kelly with that calf. He was limping pretty bad post-game. So, again, could you be looking at, Bordellini and Dalton Tucker now for the next couple of weeks? Who knows? But, yeah, we'll see how Kelly is after that one.
It's not always sunshine and rainbows when you win, so let's transition to what you did not like, the non-scripted offense. And I think that's where you miss Anthony Richardson the most.
Yeah, I just, kind of like last week, Eddie, you really stalled or you really got into a lull there offensively. You just lack multiplicity, dynamic nature, however you want to describe it with your offense right now. Obviously, there are some things that Flacco brings that Richardson doesn't bring or Richardson struggles in, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. Because I do think Flacco deserves credit for 2 items, Eddie. He doesn't have early game jitters. Think about backups. They get in the game, and they're freaking out. It takes them a while to ease into it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Flacco the last 2 weeks. Flawless. Arguably his best during the scripted portion. And then the other thing he does is he gives his pass catchers a chance. And Pittman described it better to us earlier today. Pittman says that those moments are not heavy for Flacco. And I like that. I think that is a better description. Think about that play. Think about 3rd and 9 there for a moment. It's cover 0, man across the board, and there's a free rusher. You're down 1 score.
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks just try to chuck that ball out of the end zone? Or, if Flacco took a sack there, it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
He takes a sack. Matt Gay's field goal's, 39 instead of 31 or something like that. So, for him to sit there in the pocket and to give Pittman a chance, there's a fine line with it. But, again, that to me is just really, really impressive. But as far as what I didn't like, I just thought the offense was just way too one-dimensional.
Second straight week where they've pretty much been one-dimensional.
Yeah, again, I mean, Goodson and Sermon, those snap counts have got to flip. You guys heard me talk about Goodson on last week's podcast. I think he just gives you some juice.
8 carries, 51 yards for Goodson. You had that big 33-yarder that set up the eventual, was it the field goal at the end? Or is it the touchdown? They kind of blur together.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up.
And then
he also had that nice catch and run where he made a guy miss near the goal line.
And the nice return on the kickoff. In the second half, Trey Sermon, 18 carries, 29 yards, with the long being 11, meaning he had 17 carries for 18 yards the rest of the way, outside of that one long run.
Yeah, so I need to see those snap counts switch, frankly, and so that's what I'd like to see moving forward. 42 for Sermon, 27 snaps for Goodson, if Taylor's going to be out. But again, I just thought your offense was too one-dimensional. I thought your O-line just needs to be a little better in the run game, too. I know a lot is on them right now, but still, they were so good in pass protection. You'd like to see that out of them. But, again, just way too many lulls from your offense there in the middle portion of that game. And Flacco, I mean, if you want to look at it, Eddie, 5 yards per attempt is awful. It's one of the worst the Colts have had since Luck retired. So it's a very poor day from even a passing game standpoint when you look at the yards per attempt. Obviously, the interception gave Tennessee that early life as well there. So, yeah, just a one-dimensional offense.
Yeah, Flacco had some moments where I'm like, what the hell? What is this? Especially in the first half, I'm like, you're supposed to be the veteran. You're out there looking like Anthony Richardson at some times. Yeah. Just throwing the ball over the middle of the field all willy-nilly.
Yeah, and I don't know, even the first play, didn't he miss Granson short on that first play? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Completion percentage-wise, what? He couldn't have been above 60. That day of a less than 60%, 5 yards per attempt passer, that's a rough day. And so I thought it was a rough day for Flacco.
57.9%, 22 of 38.
Yeah.
Not
good.
The other part that you did not like was the defensive line. They allowed Tony Pollard 17 carries, 93 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per carry. Tajay Spears, 6 for 27, so the two of them go for 23 carries for 110 yards.
I'll go there, and I'll go pass rush. Eddie Garrison, can you remember the last Colts sack?
Was that Isaiah Land that got penalized?
I think technically that doesn't count as a sack, right? It was in that game. Chris Lamons, middle of the third quarter. Week 4, okay? It's week 7. It's about to be week 7. Week 4, middle of the third quarter, your last sack. It's got to be one of the longest streaks in, frankly, franchise history.
Probably.
9.5 quarters. I think it's 78 pass attempts. You mentioned 4 hits. I mean, again, I'd like a little bit. I didn't feel like they rattled Levis enough. I thought Levis did his rattling. Honestly, I thought the back end was more disruptive than your front end. I thought like Samuel Womack challenged a couple balls. Certainly Jalen Jones got away with a pass interference penalty, but I thought he challenged some balls. So I get your D-line is banged up, and some of this is the front seven in general too, Eddie, but you just got to have more there. I mean, that recipe of over 5 yards per carry for a team that wasn't really doing a whole lot on the ground, and I think they had protected Levis or their quarterbacks because Rudolph played a little bit. I think they had protected their quarterbacks the second worst of any team in the league entering last game, and you aren't able to sack him. That to me, I think, is a frustrating element to it. And I don't think he threw a lot of like turnover balls to you. He obviously had the wounded duck to Blackman, but I thought there could have been a couple more moments for that opportunity there. So again, I think you expect more out of your defensive line.
If you have nothing else to add, would you like to get into Twitter questions now?
Let's do it.
Jake would like to know, did Anthony Richardson get benched?
I'm going to say no. I understand like where Jake is coming from on the question a little bit, but I'd like to say no on that end. I guess, should we just empty the Richardson thoughts here?
We've got one more or two more about Richardson, so we can empty him after the next question.
Well, let's empty him here, and then
okay.
we can react to the other ones.
Okay.
I would say Friday afternoon when he was limited at practice, I kind of was like, wait, what? Like that was a little mysterious to me. I thought his level of activity looked pretty much the same as it looked the 2 previous days. So I guess I was a little confused on that end. That's where I will start on it. Then, you hear the CBS report on the sidelines from Aditi. Boy, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name.
I don't think Spirodidis even tries to say her last name ever.
He just calls her Aditi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Saying that Shane wants his young quarterback to be fully healthy and fully himself. Breaking news. Guys aren't fully healthy in the NFL.
Yep.
Anthony Richardson's style does not allow him to be fully healthy very often.
Uh-huh.
So if you're going to wait for that, you're going to wait a long, long time.
Week 1 of next year?
Sure. So, yeah, this sounded like the team decided he wasn't ready at some point late in the week. I mean, several players thought he would start, and I just think it was such a missed growth opportunity for Richardson of, whatever. He's a little limited. It's a good defense. You're on the road. You don't have Jonathan Taylor. Great growth. Yeah. Great experience. Yeah. I mean, you can't script this stuff. It's just, and again, this is life in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers tonight. Didn't he miss practice this week, or wasn't he limited on a day?
Probably.
Sure. I mean, Levis, wasn't he limited at some points this week? It just, that to me, I think it's a little bit too coddling towards him. He's got to experience what it's like to play in those sorts of settings, especially when I'd argue, Eddie, in my 13 years covering the Colts, I've never seen a player exit a game due to injury, come back on the sidelines with his helmet on. So it's not like he stayed in the locker room or they removed his, all that stuff.
Right.
Practice then 6 straight days. He hasn't missed a single practice, and yet missed 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen that. So,
well, granted, I think last week you said that he was barely doing anything.
Well, correct. This was an upgrade, but again, it wasn't to the point where he can't practice. He still did stuff.
What do you mean? Because I know what you mean by that, but there may be some listeners that's
he still
know what goes on at practice.
Yeah,
that
he
you
still
get to
participated in the individual portions of drill. I mean, there are guys that sit out the Wednesday of practice. I don't know, probably 10 guys. I don't know, 10 might be high. Whatever.
Braden Smith has set out the last Wednesday for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Probably 6 to 8 guys that sit out that physically they can't do anything. Like Richardson could still do things, throw the ball a little bit in the individual drills, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, this week, I thought he obviously took a huge step in the right direction. So I could see why he didn't play last week. This week, to me, it gets a little bit more to the coddling, and it just bubbles to the surface the question, Eddie, of when are you ever going to get the chance to evaluate him?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the sad reality of where we sit on Anthony Richardson on October 14th. Shout out to Anna Lubbers, my incredible sister-in-law. Happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday.
The harsh reality of where we're at is he has started and finished 4 of 23 games. I mean, think about that. 23 games into his NFL career, he started and finished 4 of them. And, we are about to be at the midway point of the evaluation period. For me, with Richardson, it's a 3-year period to evaluate. That's when you make the first financial commitment to him. After year 3, you commit the 5th-year team option or you don't. So you got 3 years. 3 years is a nice leash. You got 3 years. Eddie, in 2 weeks, will be that midway point.
Yeah.
That'll be halfway through his second season. And so far, he has started and finished 4 games. That just sucks. It sucks on so many levels. Obviously for him individually. It sucks for the Colts brass, selfishly for fans. And if this was a playoff game he'd play, this is a week 6 game against Tennessee. You haven't won a divisional game this year. You're 2-3. It should be treated like a playoff game.
Yep.
What did Michael Pittman Jr. just go through to play? What did Josh Downs just go through to play?
Yeah.
What did Braden Smith just go through to play? The Colts had 5 of their 11 starters on offense miss practice time this week.
Yeah.
3 of those 11 missed multiple days. And yet the guy that practiced for 6 straight sessions isn't able to give it a go? To me, that's mixed messaging.
What message does that send to the team, in your opinion?
I don't love that if I'm in that locker room. And so I think that is something. And, if you're afraid to play him in mid-October, I mean, how banged up is he going to be in November, December?
Yeah.
January? Those are things that you can't run from at all. So I just thought the Colts handling of it is odd, is weird. So that I think is really, really disappointing. And it is a missed opportunity, and it just continues the conversation. And unfortunately, there are multiple conversations. Obviously, there are conversations about him as a player himself, but the availability conversation continues with him. So I think that covers everything kind of Richardson related for me, Eddie, unless you've got more stuff that you wanted to throw in there. But again, when is he ever going to be 100% healthy? I'd argue never. I mean, Reggie Wayne said it last week. Guys aren't 100%. You've got to play through stuff. Learning how to play quarterback at less than 100% is an important evaluation metric.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not jeopardizing your future per se. Opting for surgery on your right shoulder last year to me is different.
Yes.
This is more of a, he practiced 6 straight days and yet still isn't able to give it a go. Just very disappointing.
Mike McDaniel meeting with the media saying that quarterback Tua Tagovailoa will not play this week, but is expected to resume playing in 2024. He is seeking information and, quote, the process continues.
Yeah, I mean, Tua can't play, right? Because he's still on IR. He can't. He had to miss 4 games, right? This is one of the 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
This would be, yeah.
Do they go
4.
with Snoop again?
Yeah, I think you have to, right?
Tad Boyle time?
Who?
Tad Boyle. Isn't he the backup?
I don't even know who their backup is. I thought it was Skylar Thompson.
I thought he was hurt. I thought he might have been their 3rd. He might have been their emergency. Okay, that's everything I got, Richardson. For now, I guess.
Question 2 is from Jason. Even though it's a win, I think the list of, quote, things I didn't like should be longer than, quote, things I liked. 2 questions. 1, was Gus Bradley just blowing smoke when he said there would be tighter coverage? Because I didn't see any difference. Number 2, is Charlie Partridge the issue with the defensive line?
Well, I'd say one thing on Gus, I did think they blitzed a little more, Eddie. And I thought they were a tad more competitive with the outside corners. I don't know if it was overwhelming, but I did think they were a tad more aggressive there. They certainly blitzed more. I guess I should probably wait for the metrics to look into that, but yeah. It's crazy that 9.5 quarters into it, or you haven't had a sack in 9.5 quarters. And how much of that? I mean, Charlie Partridge, I don't know if I can pinpoint a position coach. Outside of offensive line, I think it's really hard to pinpoint everything on a particular position coach. I mean, certainly they've had some personnel, but for me, I did see a little bit more on the blitzing front. I think the overall nature of, like, should the list be longer of things I didn't like versus things I liked. The Colts won the football game yesterday. Eddie Garrison, if I pose to you, what positively happened that you think can translate moving forward, your answer would be what?
Ooh. I don't know.
Like, the tight ends had 6 catches for 65 yards. I mean, defensively, like, Samuel Womack had another nice game. I really struggled to find those things. And again, I'll do the lazy analogy here to, like, Notre Dame football because I'm such a fan. Notre Dame scores 49 points on Saturday. Riley Leonard looked much better than he had all season. Is that a positive that I believe in? Notre Dame's coming off their bye week. Did that help him? Did he get healthier? Like, that to me, like, that could potentially be a real thing.
Yeah.
With the Colts, I'm not sure if, like, anything happened real yesterday that I think can translate. And who knows? Maybe they'll beat Miami by 24 or they'll beat Miami by 2 scores and the pass rush will have a huge day and maybe you'll say, hey, maybe that can lead to C.J. Stroud the following week. Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think of stuff that I liked in the game. I was like, you know what? Not much outside of Pittman and Downs, really.
Right. And again, those guys are kind of more in the given category. Again, defensively, I think you finished, but, I've got people saying, well, yeah, doing it against Will Levis is a little different.
Brian would like to know, what does Anthony Richardson have to do to earn his quarterback spot back? Give Joe Flacco a good defense and the Colts have a chance. Is it time to sit Richardson and let him learn as a backup? My answer here is no, because that's what he did last year. He got hurt, and then he sat and watched Gardner Minshew all season long, and if he's not going to get better sitting because he needs the reps, then there's no point to sit him.
Well, right or wrong, Brian's question, what does Richardson have to do to earn his QB spot back? Being drafted 4th overall and not being a dude that's 2 months shy of his 40th birthday is that. I mean, I would say you ask virtually any offensive coach in the NFL, they think yards per attempt is a very important metric in evaluating quarterbacks. Flacco's yards per attempt yesterday was 5. Eddie, I think that's like the 5th worst the Colts have had since Luck retired. So, I mean, that's, 6 years of football in there, 80-some games of it. And, I mean, that's the 5th worst. So, I think you have to acknowledge that you lack dynamic nature, multiplicity. And, so many people point out, okay, is it time for Richardson to sit and let him learn? You just brought up a great point about all the learning he supposedly did last year. When people throw out the Mahomes learned or Rodgers learned, they also played a ton in college.
Mm-hmm.
A ton in college. Like, I feel like we lose sight of that. I've always said this about Richardson. He is the rawest / least productive quarterback ever taken in round 1 of the NFL draft. Ever. You just don't see guys with his resume. Okay, what does that mean? That means you're going to commit to him playing-wise.
And you don't have like a minor league system like you do with Major League Baseball or NBA.
Or the G League, yeah. And, again, I'll echo what I said last Monday on it. I mean, I've watched Minshew win 9 games with the Colts. I've watched Carson Wentz win 9 games with the Colts. I've watched Phillip Rivers win 11.
Yeah.
I've watched Jacoby Brissett win 7. I don't need to watch Flacco win 9 or whatever he would win, 10. Like, I just don't need to see that.
And then you become the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right or wrong, there are just different, weirdly, you're grading position groups on your football team differently this season. The defense, with bringing back 11 starters and in year 3 of Gus Bradley, gets graded differently than Anthony Richardson. That's just the reality of where you're at right now as a franchise. It's a weird timeline with your quarterback and the rest of your team.
Bailey brings up an excellent question. How many pass attempts has it been since the Colts have registered a sack? It was there the first couple of weeks, but now it's non-existent. That's the position group our general manager seems to only care about. So where's the production? Also, I haven't heard Latu's name on a broadcast since the strip sack.
Yeah, you need more from Latu. I know he had a couple quarterback hits. You certainly need more there. That run stop was, I thought, a nice play. I think he had a tight end on him on that play there early in the 3rd, or early in the 4th, I should say. But yeah, it's been, I think it's like 78 pass attempts. I mean, that's crazy. to think about it. And I thought, they did bring pressure this week. I mean, they did do some things differently from bringing extra guys to try and affect the quarterback, and that did not work. So, yeah, I think right now, somewhere on your disappointment level, the linebacker group, and I get you're banged up on the D-line, but still, manufacturing more of a pass rush is necessary right now. I mean, 78 straight attempts. It's got to be. I mean, you just kind of fall into sacks. Dudes trip in the pocket and fall down, and you fall on top of them. And yet they haven't had one since, third quarter of week 3.
Was that the one where Justin Fields slipped?
That was Le Mans. Did he slip on the Le Mans one?
Well, that's the last sack that I remember was Fields.
It wasn't the errant snap. It was the one. Well, I mean, I guess maybe he did slip there. It was the one that he kept on going back on.
Yeah, he slipped and he fumbled, right?
Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not even like he was tackled.
Right. I mean, if you want to get technical, I guess they haven't had a non free rushing blitz. I mean, I'm still gonna give Colts credit for that, but
right.
Yeah, they just need more out of their D line, out of their linebackers.
Chris lightens the mood a little bit here because he asked you to rank these 4 wide receivers: Austin Collie, Blair White, Brandon Stokely, Alec Pierce.
Well, what do these 4 wideouts have in common here? Yeah, I would say, easily Stokely for sure. By the way, they just gotta. I feel like they have got to just take a shot to Pierce. At least 1.5. They didn't do one in the first half, right?
I don't recall. Well, there was the one throw on the run from Flacco where it looked like he was going to Pittman and Pierce couldn't haul it in. He was sliding.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm talking like a true deep shot,
Right, yeah. I was like, that was the only thing I could think of.
Because like you saw L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, he kind of panicked. Pierce got a little behind him, and boom, he grabs him. Like, you're going to get that. Again, I tweet it out every time Pierce draws one of those pass interference penalties, or frankly, when he catches it. Good things happen when you chuck the ball deep to Alec Pierce. Stokely for sure is 1. I mean, Colley's been better than Pierce, right? Colley would be 2. Then Pierce, then Blair White.
Yeah.
Is that the order?
It's probably what I would agree with, yeah.
Stokely, Colley, Pierce, and Blair White.
Yeah, people forget Colley had 600, 600, and 500 yards receiving, and he had 601 year in 9 games.
Yeah, Stokely's easily 1. I guess 2 and 3 could debate a little bit, but yeah, that's how I would go.
2 questions left, Brett and Jamie. Brett, we will go with your question first. If in 2025 the NFL had a complete redraft of all players of all teams, and each team can only keep 1 guy on their active roster, who would the Colts keep? In Brett's opinion, it would be Josh Downs, and there's no close second.
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, one more time, Eddie. 2025, you've got to keep 1 player.
Yes.
So it's like a expansion draft, but you've got to protect. I mean, more or less, you're protecting 1 player.
Yes.
What about Latu?
What about Bernard Ryman?
Oh, yeah, Ryman's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, Ryman is a good one. Yeah. Hell, it might be Downs. I mean, the more that I think about it. Yeah, I think, obviously with Latu, you'd be banking a lot on, hey, pass rushers take some time and whatever. That aspect of it. Downs certainly much more proven. Yeah, Ryman. I'd go Ryman now that you say that. Ryman, Downs, Latu. Is that the order? Who am I missing? Is it too? Taylor's getting too old, right?
Pittman.
I mean, isn't Pittman kind of on the old? I hate to act like these guys are super old, but aren't they kind of nearing 30? Some of these guys.
I don't know how old Pittman is off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. That would be it.
All right, Kev, can you convince Jamie Chris Ballard isn't the one who made the call to send Anthony Richardson? That is the only logical reason. He is healthy enough to be the emergency quarterback, practice for 2 weeks, as you've mentioned on the pod, and seemingly would have went back in against the Steelers. This has Ballard worried about his job security written all over it. Ballard knows his seat gets even hotter with another division loss and thinks Flacco is his best option.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this. I mean, isn't Ballard and Steichen tied to Richardson?
No.
They're not?
I think Ballard is tied to Richardson. Steichen is not.
Okay, well, I guess just for the base of this question, let's go with that. Ballard is tied to Richardson. So if he's tied with Richardson, wouldn't you want him out there?
Yes.
Like if Richardson's a bust, then or doesn't work out, however you want to describe it.
The way, because I look at it like this, that Ballard had done the Band-Aid for so long, and he finally ponied up,
right,
and drafted the rookie QB. And if you don't get it right in today's NFL, you are gone.
Yeah, and I understand where Jamie's coming from. There's a side of it that, and this gets back to the awkward timeline the Colts are on. Like, the Colts need to win games.
I view this as year 2 for Ballard because the reset button was made when you drafted Richardson last year.
Yeah, it's just gosh, it's just so awkward, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, certainly another division loss. I don't know. Do you think Flacco's a better option? Again, you could probably debate that a little bit. I guess in a very small sample size.
Maybe if you don't have Taylor just because you don't know how Anthony is as a passer fully.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Again, I just think that's a lot of coddling of Richardson. I understand where you're coming from, but I would go there. I do think there's a level of collaboration I do think Steichen is probably the one that had a lot of influence on it.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear, but still, I understand where the question is coming from. But if you're Jim Irsay at the end of the day, the grand thought of did Anthony Richardson work out or not is going to be how you decide. At least part of me is like, wait, am I trying to act like I know what Jim Irsay is going to, how he's going to decide the fate of Chris Ballard?
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking from a logical, owner, GM standpoint, but those are my thoughts.
DeForest Buckner has now missed 4 games, so the Colts can
He's
open.
eligible.
Yep, 21-day practice window. It did look like he made the trip to Nashville and started to go through a little bit of a pregame workout, a little bit on the field. I noticed he was wearing like a air cast, not really an air cast, but like some sort of cast or something on that right ankle.
Yeah, we'll see. I asked Shane about him on Friday, and he acknowledged that he's eligible, but wasn't sure yet exactly where you're at timetable. I don't know. I feel like in my history with those guys on IR, and again, Buckner's injury maybe not as severe as some of the others. Typically it hasn't been just 4 games and you're automatically back. But we'll see how that plays out here this week, and we'll be back on Wednesday. Eddie Garris, anything else?
I know this is a Colt-centric pod. We want to give a shout-out to my guy, Tyrone Tracy. Balled out last night on Sunday Night Football, yeah. Was excited to see him on the big stage, and everyone's, obsessed with the fact that he transferred from wide receiver to running back and didn't do the research because in high school, he was a running back for 3 years and then transitioned to wide receiver pretty much as a junior, or as a senior.
Look at that. Eddie Garrison all over it there with the Decatur Central Hawk, Tyrone Tracy. Everybody have a great week. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.